comic book fans, let's talk about an older storyline that came out from the Batman comic books back in 1988 to 1989. It was called A Death in the Family. Many people are already aware of the fact that Batman has had multiple different partners, starting out with Dick Grayson, who is the original sidekick of all sidekicks in the superhero universe. Later, he was replaced by JasoN Todd. That's where this story came in. Batman issues numbers 426 to 429 spotlighted A Death in the Family. This is where JasoN Todd was ultimately killed off by the Joker. This was a huge event in the comic book universe. Robin had been killed off several other times in other alternate realities and other universes, but never to this extent where it actually stuck for a long period of time. The storyline consisted of 4 different issues. It was written by Jim Starlin and illustrated by Jim Aparo. When JasoN Todd was introduced into the DC universe, he was almost a carbon copy of what Dick Grayson used to be. Then the universe was rebooted during the Crisis. After the Crisis, his attitude changed a lot. In fact, writers started to make him much more impulsive, much more angry, much more arrogant and full of himself, to the point where fans were fed up with him and they didn't like his character. DC listened to their fans to an extent, and Jim Starlin wrote a storyline where JasoN Todd's mother was still alive and he decided to go out and try to find her. The first 2 issues of this storyline focuses on JasoN Todd's origin, talking about where he came from and how he became Batman's partner, and then searching around the globe finding potential contacts who could be his mother. Unfortunately, because of the circumstances that surround everything, he does find his biological mother, and she's also working for the Joker. It does seem very fitting that the Joker is the one to kill Robin off. He's never been able to kill off Batman, but killing off Robin is almost the next best thing. This is where we get the infamous crowbar panels, where we see Robin being beaten within an inch of his life by the Joker. It was very brutal, especially for the 80s. The 80s was when everything was getting much more darker in comic books, but this had to be something that was much more darker in comparison to many other storylines before it. The Comics Code Authority put their seal of approval on it, so it was a go-ahead for them, but even still, it had to be something that was very shocking for back then. After issue 427, DC left the fate of JasoN Todd into the hands of DC readers out there. There was a phone number set up where readers could call in and either A, kill Robin off, or B, let JasoN Todd live. It was a very close margin. 5,343 people called in to kill Robin, and 5,271 people called to let him live. But the verdict was in, and it was death. The next issue has Batman finding his corpse. In comic book world, if there's no body, then there's no death. But they made sure that there was absolutely no question to this. Robin was dead. JasoN Todd's body had been found, and he had died in the explosion. Superman had to come in to keep Batman from going after him any further, because now the Joker has diplomatic immunity. And the Joker tries to kill the UN, all this other stuff happens, and the Joker ends up getting away. Again, like usual. It almost felt as though that was just kind of put in there just to show that the Joker has now gotten away with another thing, even though you think he may be dead, but still, the Joker never dies at the end of any explosion or any type of death that may happen to anyone else. He always escapes. This storyline had very far-reaching effects on Batman. Number one, he blamed himself for Jason's death, and it caused him to get even darker than he already was. It also kept him from being trusting to a new Robin, which this is where Tim Drake would come in later on down the line. And even though JasoN Todd does come back to life decades later through a Superboy Prime reality-punching, timey-wimey kind of thing that I don't even want to go into, Batman still blames himself for his death up to this day. When non-comic book people found out that Robin had been killed off, a lot of people were upset about it. They thought it was the original Robin, Dick Grayson, that had died. But DC stuck to their storyline and they kept Jason dead for a while. Later, when they brought in Tim Drake, a lot of people forgot about Jason, or they thought that this new Robin was even better, which is something that I'm going to have to agree with. But we'll go into Tim Drake's origin in another video. In my opinion, this is one of the best Batman stories that have ever been told. There's been some loose adaptations here and there in animated formats showing JasoN Todd being killed off, specifically under a storyline called Under the Red Hood. Had Jason been voted to live, there has been some concept art that surfaced showing a panel where Batman is very happy that Jason is still alive. But I've only seen one image of that online. I think DC was pretty confident in the idea that fans were going to kill him off. Stuff like that isn't done in comic books anymore. I'm very curious. Had there been a new poll for today's Robin, say if Damian Wayne was voted to be killed off, would they actually go through with it? I personally hate Damian Wayne. I know some people out there love him and adore him, but I also know many people can't stand him just as much as I can. But we won't go into that anymore. This is a great comic book storyline. It's available in trade paperback if you don't want to get the individual issues. In fact, it's been released on trade paperback many times. If you want any back history on Batman, this is a definite read for anyone out there. But that's it. I think I've given enough spoilers on this as it is. Thank you guys for watching me in this comic book review. Be sure to check out my Patreon site, my website, my social media sites, and everything else out there. Anyways, I'll join you guys in another comic book review very soon. Peace.